everybody. Can you believe it? We are on our very last session of Signum Academy's Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone camp. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little sad. I'm going to miss this. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it too, because we've all learned a lot. And I think me as a teacher, I've learned just as much, if not more, than you guys. You ever think about that? That what your teachers are teaching you, they're actually learning a lot themselves. That's almost always true. And anybody who's a teacher will tell you that. So let me share my screen with you so you can see my slides. And we have got a lot to cover today. So I'm just going to review really quickly the themes and questions we've been talking about. Remember, interpretations and misinterpretations, that's a big one. Appearance versus reality. JK Rowling's style, how she writes, her descriptive, vivid language, her wordplay, all that kind of stuff. We've been talking about why Dumbledore hasn't rescued Harry. And we're going to see today quite a bit about that. And how Harry becomes Harry. I also just wanted to real quick deal with a question that came up yesterday. We were talking about unicorns and how slaying a unicorn and drinking its blood is a horrible, horrible thing. It'll make you cursed. You'll have a cursed life, a half-life. And somebody asked the question, well, what happens if you find a dead unicorn and drink its blood? Well, I would say, after thinking about this, that it still would not be a good thing to drink a unicorn's blood, even if you found one that it was already dead, was already deceased, okay? Because that isn't something that human beings are supposed to have. That's something that belongs to another creature. That's interfering with the order of things, with the way things are supposed to work. And when human beings do that, they get into big trouble sometimes, okay? So I don't think any of us will ever find ourselves in that situation, but it's a good thing to think about. What happens if you just find one that's dead? Still, don't drink its blood. Don't take the chance of taking something you're not supposed to have. Oh, thank you for answering my question. You are quite welcome. All right, so let's start talking about the last two chapters of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now remember where we left off. Harry has come back to the common room. He's told Ron and Hermione about everything that's happened. Okay, he knows now who's behind this. Voldemort. Ultimately, Voldemort is the one who's behind all of this. He still thinks that Snape is working for Voldemort. Remember that, okay? Now, he's got this lurking feeling. A lurking feeling. Nothing has happened. We've gone a little while. Exams have started. Harry is having nightmares. Who wouldn't after that, right? He's got this pain in his forehead. But nothing has happened yet. Except there's this feeling in the back of Harry's mind. He can't shake it. Something is missing. He's still missing a piece of the puzzle. So he's talking to Ron and Hermione. Harry nodded, but he couldn't shake off a lurking feeling that there was something he'd forgotten to do, something important. When he tried to explain this, Hermione said, "That's just the exams. I woke up last night and was halfway through my transfiguration notes before I remembered we'd done that one." Oh, somebody has put in a question. I wonder which house Hagrid was in. Hagrid was a Gryffindor, if I remember right. I think Hagrid was in Gryffindor, which makes sense. He's a pretty brave guy, isn't he? Okay, and speaking of Hagrid, this lurking feeling that Harry has something to do with him. Okay, it's not the exams. And yes, doesn't that sound just like Hermione, right? She gets up in the middle of the night and she's halfway through her transfiguration notes before she realizes, oh, we did that exam already. Now, Harry knows Hagrid would never deliberately let Dumbledore down, right? He wouldn't deliberately do anything. But there's something Harry still feels he's missing. He's unsettled. There's a question. He just can't reconcile something, make it work. Okay, how come the stranger who met Hagrid in the pub, how come he just happened to have a dragon egg in his pocket? How come that stranger just happened to find Hagrid? Pretty weird, right? Pretty weird. Too much to be a coincidence, Harry thinks. So they head down. They're going to talk to Hagrid. And they ask Hagrid to explain that night that he got the dragon egg. And Hagrid has a tough time. Turns out he'd had a little bit too much to drink. And he doesn't quite remember everything that happened. But notice how Harry questions him here. So Hagrid said, let's see. Yeah, then he said he had the dragon egg and we could play cards for it if I wanted. But he had to be sure I could handle it. He didn't want it to go to any old home. So I told him after Fluffy, a dragon would be easy. And did he seem interested in Fluffy? Harry asked. Well, yeah. How many three-headed dogs do you meet, even around Hogwarts? So I told him, Fluffy's a piece of cake if you just know how to calm him down. Just play him a bit of music and he'll go straight off to sleep. Uh-oh. Hagrid spilled the beans again, didn't he? Yes, and somebody else said that at the same time I did. Very good. We were thinking the same thing, weren't we? Hagrid let the secret out. He didn't mean to, but somebody in that cloak, remember the person in the cloak, he never showed his face, the person with the dragon egg, he kept his hood up the whole time. Whoever was under that cloak knew Hagrid's weakness. He knew he wanted a dragon, and he knew if he got Hagrid a little tipsy, Hagrid might just tell all. And he did. Okay, so whoever it is, and the kids think they know, they think it was Snape or Voldemort, but maybe especially Snape under that cloak. Now the person knows how to get past Fluffy. Okay, and the kids want to finally get help. They're going to go talk to Dumbledore. This is beyond them now. The person in question, they believe, Snape, knows how to get past Fluffy, apparently knows all the other protections guarding the stone, including, they think, now Quirrell's bit of hocus pocus. Okay, so it's time to get help. It's time to go to Dumbledore. But they run into one obstacle after another. First of all, Professor McGonagall catches them and tells them that Dumbledore's off to London. He received an out from the Ministry of Magic. He had to go. Dumbledore's gone. She won't take them seriously, Professor McGonagall. Remember, she already thinks that they made up one crazy story already about the dragon to get Draco Malfoy in trouble. So she won't believe them when they say about the stone and that somebody's going to try to steal it. No, come on, this is just another crazy story, you kids. And how do you know about the stone anyway? Okay, so they're trying. Snape turns up with a warning. You'd better go back outside. Somebody might think you're up to something. Okay, Harry and Ron, they go up and try to guard the third floor corridor. Professor McGonagall catches them again, and she threatens to take another 50 points from Gryffindor. Hermione, she's supposed to be watching Snape and loses him. Okay, so Harry now knows at this point that they're not going to have any help. The one person who may have helped them is gone. He got called off to London. Little suspicious in its own right, isn't it? Yeah, just at this very moment, Dumbledore gets called away. So Harry makes a decision. He knows what he has to do. He's going through the trapdoor tonight. He's going to try to get the stone before Snape can get it. Now Hermione right away starts arguing with him, but Harry, you're going to be expelled if you get caught. But remember how Harry answers? Let's read what he says. So what? Harry shouted. Don't you understand? If Snape gets hold of the stone, Voldemort's coming back. Haven't you heard what it was like when he was trying to take over? There won't be any Hogwarts to get expelled from. He'll flatten it or turn it into a school for the dark arts. Losing points doesn't matter anymore. Can't you see? Do you think he'd leave you and your families alone if Gryffindor won the House Cup? If I get caught before I can get the stone, well, I'll have to go back to the Dursleys and wait for Voldemort to find me there. It's only dying a bit later than I would have done, because I'm never going over to the dark side. I'm going through that trapdoor tonight, and nothing you two say is going to stop me. Voldemort killed my parents, remember? Now, what a speech from an 11, almost 12-year-old young man. He has principles, doesn't he? He has values. He is looking at the big picture of the situation. Gryffindor winning the House Cup, even as important as it is to all the other students in Gryffindor and Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, apparently, considering the way they were treating everybody, remember? Okay, that's a really tiny little thing compared to Voldemort coming back. He'll flatten Hogwarts, or he'll turn it into a school for the dark arts. Harry can see this, and this is a very adult, very mature way of looking at the situation. He sees the bigger picture. He understands the risk. He knows he could get caught. He knows he might die. But he's willing to sacrifice himself, if need be, to save others. Now, we see Harry doing this throughout the rest of the series, but here's the first time that he really takes it upon himself to say, I'm going to sacrifice myself if I have to try to stop this, to try to save other people. He sees the something greater in the situation. Isn't that pretty remarkable? Now, if you really think about that, coming out of a young man this age, remember, we've been talking about how Harry becomes Harry. Okay? We've talked about all the hardship he's suffered. He knows what it's like to hurt. He knows what it's like to be bullied. And yet, he's going to give of himself to save people if he at all can. He doesn't want to be like those who were hurting him. He wants to be the opposite. Now, of course, Ron and Hermione, they're all for it. They're not going to let Harry go alone. They see this too. But they're all scared, of course. Okay, who wouldn't be? Would you be scared? Going down the trapdoor, knowing what you had to do? Think about that. If you were in Harry's place, what would you do? Would you have the courage, and that's what Harry has, right? The courage to say, I'm going to put myself last, and I'm going to think about the good of other people. And I'm going to do this because it's the right thing to do, even if it's hard, even if it's scary. I'm going to think of something greater than me and do the right thing. Okay, Ron and Hermione do, don't they? And it's a good thing because we're going to see that it takes all three of them to get through this task. But they have one more obstacle before they get near Fluffy. At least one more. And that's an unexpected obstacle by the name of Neville Longbottom. Neville is sitting in his PJs in the common room as Harry, Ron, and Hermione get ready to leave. I think he's probably been looking for that toad of his again, Trevor. but he's ready to stand up for what he thinks is right too. Neville's learned a lot this year. You can't go out, said Neville. You'll get caught again. Gryffindor will be in even more trouble. I won't let you do it, he said, hurrying to stand in front of the portrait hole. I'll fight you. Can you picture Neville, how he might say that, getting all tensed up? I'll fight you. And he would have. Remember, Neville doesn't know the big picture here. He doesn't know what's going on. He just sees three Gryffindors who are ready to break the rules again. He doesn't understand why. Okay, but he's finally developing the courage to stand up for what he believes is right, even though this time Neville misinterprets the situation. He gets it wrong. He can't help it, but he does. Okay, and Hermione, poor Hermione, it falls to her to do what needs to be done here because they have to go down the trapdoor. They have to leave the common room. And she apologizes profusely, a lot, and promises she's going to explain everything later, and then hits Neville with a full body bind curse. He topples over onto his face. Only his eyes are moving at this point. Okay, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they leave the common room and they think, oh, that's a bad sign. We're leaving Neville behind us on the floor. At least they turned him over, so he's not in his face anymore. So what do you think about Neville? What do you think of his action? Look at how his character has developed through the books. Okay, that's a big thing when we read novels, to see how our characters grow and change over the books. That's something we should be paying a lot of attention to. That's called character development. And a lot of authors do a good job of that. And now we have Neville, and he's grown a lot. He's grown from letting Malfoy just put a curse on him and not standing up for himself to having the courage to speak up for what he thinks is right. Neville's grown a lot. And those of you, probably most of us here, who have read the full series, we know how Neville grows later, right? This is only the very start of his development as a character. Okay, so leaving Neville behind them, the three friends go on. And it's not an easy journey. They're all under the invisibility cloak, which still works because they're still fairly young and small. But they have to dodge Peeves, right? Remember how Harry pretends to be the Bloody Baron? The only one Peeves will pay any attention at all to. Okay, they have to get past Fluffy using Hagrid's wooden flute. Okay, so they do that, and they jump down into the trapdoor. Okay. They land on something soft. But as always, in the wizarding world, things aren't always as they seem, are they? Appearance versus reality. Yeah, that's something soft. Ron says, hey, lucky this plant thing is here. Until Hermione realizes what's going on. Lucky, shrieked Hermione. Look at you both. She leapt up and struggled toward a damp wall. She had to struggle because the moment she had landed, the plant had started to twist snake-like tendrils around her ankles. As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly in long creepers without their noticing. This is one of the first tests, one of the first protections of the stone after Fluffy. Hermione knows what it is. It's called the Devil's Snare. She knows what it is. She's been listening in herbology, and she knows it likes the dark and the damp. But she's too scared and too frazzled to do anything at all with that knowledge. Remember, she just stands there trying to figure out what to do. Have you ever felt like that? Where you know something and you just can't apply it? Well, that's where Hermione is right now. So Harry's like, okay, it likes dark and damp, light a fire. And the frazzled Hermione says, fire, fire, but there's no wood. And Ron snaps, have you gone mad? Are you a witch or what? Just picture that in your head. The interactions between these three characters, right? Have you gone mad? Are you a witch or what? Now that snaps Hermione out of her panic, doesn't it? And Hermione does her stuff. She's been doing really good at bringing up fire. She can make fire out of nothing. And she does. Remember those blue things? Remember the thing she set Snape on fire? Right? So she does it. She brings fire, wood or not. And the plant backs off. And they are safe. But it took all three of them. Here's teamwork. Right, guys? Teamwork. Hermione, knew what the plant was, knew what it didn't like. Harry made the suggestion. Ron got Hermione out of her panic. Hermione did her stuff. Took all three. Okay, Harry couldn't have done this by himself. He needs his friends. And that's true for their next challenge. Although this challenge, this is where Harry gets to shine. He is particularly suited for this. He is not the youngest seeker in a century for nothing. You know that next challenge, don't you? The flying keys. They have to get a key to the door across the corridor, across the chamber, to move on. Except those little keys are all flying around in midair. And let's see what happens. They grab the broomsticks. Ron dived. Hermione rocketed upwards. The key dodged them both, and Harry streaked after it. It sped toward the wall. Harry leaned forward and with a nasty crunching noise, pinned it against the stone with one hand. Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed around the high chamber. Okay, so remember, Ron had spotted the key. They all got on the broomsticks, and again, teamwork. Harry shines. This is Harry doing his stuff, right? He's not the youngest seeker in a century for nothing, like we said. But it takes all three of them to get the right key. And look at the language here. Remember, we've talked about vivid language, rocketed upward. Can you picture that? Whew, really quick ascent. Harry streaked after it. It sped toward the wall. Okay, look at all the different words for motion that Rowling uses here. We can hear the nasty crunching noise, can't we? When the key gets slammed up against the stone. So one more challenge out of the way. Now, the next one. It never stops, does it? These kids have so many things to work their way through. They push the key into the door and hurry on right onto a giant chessboard with alive moving pieces, like a massive wizard chess set. Okay, now it's Ron's turn. This is Ron's turn to shine. He's good at chess. Remember, he's beaten Harry and even Hermione more than once. It's the only thing Hermione ever lost at. And Harry and Ron thought that was awfully good for her. Okay, they have to play to the other side to move on. They have to win this chess game. And only Ron is going to be able to do this. So he takes command. He's like a general directing his troops. Now, he's been doing this in chess for a long time. But the stakes are much higher here. Okay, so they go. They play. They take the places of three of the pieces. They put themselves in harm's way again. Remember, there's something greater here than the three of them. They're going to take the risk. And they reach a turning point in the game. And there's only one thing that Ron can do. And he knows it. Yes, said Ron softly. It's the only way. I've got to be taken. No, Harry and Hermione shouted. That's chess, snapped Ron. You've got to make some sacrifices. I'll make my move, and she'll take me, the Queen. That leaves you free to checkmate the king, Harry. Hey, Ron knows what he's got to do. He's going to sacrifice himself. Remember, something greater. He's realized it too. He knows what Harry was talking about. If they let Voldemort come back, nothing else is going to matter much. That's the something greater. They have to stop him. So he's going to sacrifice himself. He knows what he has to do, and he does it. Without complaint, without hesitation. And he does. He puts himself right in front of that big queen, that gigantic living chess piece. You guys remember that from the movie? I think that was a nice portrayal of the chess set in the movie. Remember, the queen smacks Ron to the side, and Harry steps forward and checkmates the king. And all the chess pieces move aside for them to go on, for Harry and Hermione to go on. But the problem is they have to leave Ron behind them, unconscious, and there's no choice. Okay, so another sacrifice, another acknowledgement that there's something more important than me. There's something greater, and I'm going to give myself up for it because I believe in it that much. Look at the courage that these three young people have. And we all should ask ourselves, would we do the same? Would we be able to step into Ron's shoes and say, I'm going to do this because I believe that there's something more, there's something greater? Good questions. Okay, and that's what this book does. It makes us think, doesn't it? That's what literature does for people. It makes us think about situations that we aren't in, but we could be. And it invites us to wonder about how we would do it if it were us in this place. Okay, so the next room, Harry and Hermione rather, enter into. Thankfully, that horrible troll is unconscious on the ground. Whew. Challenge done. They've dealt with one of those once already. Good thing they don't have to do another one. And they move on again. Now the next challenge looks strange to Harry. Remember, they walk into the room and all there is a table with all these little bottles of potion lined up on it. Remember what else happens though? A weird colored fire springs up behind them as they enter the room. Okay? Well, let's read about it. Brilliant, said Hermione. This isn't magic, it's logic, a puzzle. A lot of the greatest wizards haven't got an ounce of logic. They'd be stuck in here forever. But so will we, won't we? Of course not, said Hermione. Everything we need is here on this paper. 7 bottles, 3 are poison, 2 are wine, 1 will get us safely through the black fire, and 1 will get us back through the purple. And Hermione knows how to solve it. Okay, she uses her logic to solve the problem. She picks out the 2 bottles, 1 that'll get her back and 1 that'll move Harry on. And remember, they have to do that because there's only a swallow in each. Somebody's got a question. Yeah, luckily, yeah. Now, could you solve this logic problem? What do you think? Remember, I've been talking about the program packets that your organizers or parents have for you? In those packets, there is this logic problem. There's a transcription of the sheet of clues that Hermione has, and I believe there's a little drawing of the bottles on the table. Ask your organizers or parents for that logic problem and see if you can solve it. See if you can get it right. If you can do what Hermione did and figure out which potion moves you on and which one takes you back. It's a good little fun challenge. See if you can get it. See if you can match wits with Hermione. Okay, and parents, organizers, if you're listening in, we've given you the solution. But don't give it to your campers yet, not until they've tried it. Okay, so Harry and Hermione are about to take leave of each other. And remember what Hermione does? She hugs Harry. She gives him this big hug, and Harry is so embarrassed. And she says, Harry, you're a great wizard, you know. I'm not as good as you, said Harry, very embarrassed as she let go of him. Me, said Hermione, books and cleverness. There are more important things, friendship and bravery. And oh, Harry, be careful. Yes, Hermione has realized it too, hasn't she? There's something greater. Here's our Hermione, our wonderful know-it-all, the one who wants to learn everything from books, right? I have a question. Is Harry embarrassed from the hug or the compliment? I would say he's probably a little of both. That would be my guess. He's getting hugged by a girl, which for an 11-year-old boy is always kind of embarrassing. And he's getting a compliment of being a great wizard, which he doesn't really think he is. Harry kind of feels like he's flying along by the seat of his pants here, right? He doesn't quite know what he's doing. He just knows like he has to do it. Okay? So Hermione has realized also that there's something more. There's something greater. Our book-loving Hermione knows how important those things are. But there's friendship. There's bravery. There's sacrificing yourself for something else and somebody else. But yet it takes all three friends to make it through those challenges beneath the trapdoor, doesn't it? They all have their moment to shine. But if one of them were missing, they would have never made it. Think about yourself and your best friends. How do you compliment each other? Now, I'm not saying the compliment of saying nice things about each other. This is complement with an E. How do you complete each other? That's what it means. Maybe you have talents that your friend doesn't, and your friend has talents that you don't. And yet when you work together, wow, look at the amazing things that can happen, right? Pretty cool. Oh, what were the living chess pieces made out of? Good question. I'd say probably the same things that like usual chess pieces are made out of. The ones in the movie kind of looked like a stone or a marble. Okay, so I think maybe something like that. And the way they sounded in the movie directors and designers were probably thinking about stone moving across the chessboard. Okay, so I'd say they were probably something very solid like that. So when that queen hauled off and hit Ron, that was a hard hit, wasn't it? That was a pretty serious thing. And yet he was willing to do it. Okay, so we'll take just a moment break here in the middle of the class. We'll look at the journal question for this chapter and take a minute to write in questions or comments that you have about the three friends going through the trapdoor. Okay, and my question to you for your journals is this. Which of the challenges beneath the trapdoor would you be best at and why? The devil's snare? The flying keys? The chessboard? We can count the troll, maybe. They didn't have to deal with that one. Or the logic? Which one would you be best at? What's your talent? For me, I like the logic problem. I solved that on Pottermore when it came out, and I was really happy because I got it right. But I love logic problems, so that one would be my best. Oh, I wonder how tall the chess king was. Good question. We don't get it in the book so much, other than that they say the pieces are huge. But if you think about it, how they portrayed it in the movie, that chess king, he was like way up above the kids. He was almost twice as tall, wasn't he? So I'd say he'd have to be, boy, just estimating, like 7 feet tall, maybe even more. This is a big, huge chess set. Can you imagine playing through that? Pretty brave, wouldn't you say? Okay, well now it's time to move on. It's time for Harry to find out the truth. It's time for him to go into the next chamber. And he gets a real surprise when he walks through those flames. Not Snape standing there, not Voldemort standing there. It's Quirrell. Harry has been interpreting wrong all the way along, hasn't he? He's been thinking Snape all the way along. And here, standing before him, it's Professor Quirrell, the last person he expected to see. Did you expect it the first time you read the book? I didn't. I was with Harry. I was thinking it was Snape. But it wasn't. There's our theme. Interpretations and misinterpretations. Harry got it wrong. And now he sees that finally. And Quirrell, he proceeds to explain the real state of things. Severus, Quirrell laughed, and it wasn't his usual quivering treble either, but cold and sharp. Yes, Severus does seem the type, doesn't he? So useful to have him swooping around like an overgrown bat. Next to him, who would suspect poor stuttering Professor Quirrell? Okay, and then later Harry says, well, Snape tried to kill me. You sure it's not him? He really can't grasp that, can he? No, I tried to kill you. Your friend Miss Granger accidentally knocked me over as she rushed to set fire to Snape at that Quidditch match. She broke my eye contact with you. Another few seconds, and I'd have got you off that broom. I'd have managed it before then if Snape hadn't been muttering a counter curse trying to save you. Well, this wasn't what Harry thought, right? Appearances versus reality. Harry, Ron, and Hermione thought it was Snape trying to curse Harry at the Quidditch match. It wasn't. It was Quirrell the whole time. Snape had been trying to stop him. Crazy, I agree, right? Crazy. And Quirrell has a reason he's doing all these things. Okay? He met somebody on his journeys, on his explorations into the dark arts. He met somebody on his travels. He met Voldemort. And Voldemort took him in. Voldemort fed him a line, didn't he? Quirrell was vulnerable. He was weak. And Voldemort offered him something. He offered him power. Let's hear what Quirrell has to say about this new philosophy that Voldemort gave him. He is with me wherever I go, said Quirrell quietly. I met him when I traveled around the world. A foolish young man I was then, full of ridiculous ideas about good and evil. Lord Voldemort showed me how wrong I was. There is no good and evil. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it. Since then I have served him faithfully, although I have let him down many times. He has had to be very hard on me. What do you think of Quirrell's philosophy? Voldemort's philosophy, really, that Quirrell is just kind of parroting, just kind of copying, right? No good and evil, just power and those too weak, just power and weakness, power and those too weak to seek it. Harry doesn't think that's true. Harry knows that there's evil, and he's trying to be the good one and fighting the evil. Ron and Hermione know it too. That's something greater. That's the good. that's trying to overcome the evil. Okay, Dumbledore knows it. Even Snape, in his own way, we found out now, knows it. He's trying to save Harry. Okay, so Quirrell, he's getting it wrong. He's listening to Voldemort. Voldemort's filling his head. Quirrell's weak. He believes in him. He wants power. He wants to control things. He wants to put himself first. The exact opposite of what Harry, Ron, and Hermione have been doing when they put themselves last for the good of other people. Isn't that quite a contrast that JK Rowling has built for us here to help us see how both sides of that work? Okay, and we know Quirrell couldn't be more wrong, and next events, they tell him that it's not about power or weakness. It's about good and evil. Because Harry Potter, right now, he's about as weak as you can get. He is really in a bad spot right now. Because remember how powerful Quirrell is with Voldemort with him, right? He's with me wherever I go. He can snap his fingers and Harry's all tied up in ropes. Okay? Now remember, what else is standing in this chamber? It's the mirror. Mirror of Erised. And Quirrell is trying to figure out how to get the stone. He knows it has something to do with that mirror. But when he looks in the mirror, he can only see himself handing the stone to his master, to Voldemort. But he can't see where the stone is hidden. He's seeing his greatest desire, isn't he? He wants to give the stone to Voldemort. But he can't see where the stone is. And Harry, the more he thinks about it, realizes what he has to do. Okay? He wants to find the stone. More than anything in the world right now, he wants to find it. Not to use it, just to find it and keep it safe. Now Voldemort realizes that too, and a voice comes out of the blue. Use the boy. Use the boy. So Quirrell brings Harry in front of the mirror. And Harry knows he has to look and lie about what he sees. He saw his reflection, pale and scared looking at first. But a moment later, the reflection smiled at him. It put its hand in its pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone. It winked and put the stone back in its pocket. And as it did so, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. Somehow, incredibly, he'd got the stone. Harry wanted nothing more in the world right then than to find that stone, and he did. As weak and as vulnerable as he was right then, his heart was pure. His intentions were pure and good. He wasn't going to use the stone. He just wanted to find it and keep it safe. So it's not about power. We can see right now Quirrell is wrong. The one who gets the stone is the weak one with the good heart. Okay, and he lies to Voldemort, doesn't he? He has to. How could, he can't say, I got stone in my pocket. Yeah, that would be silly. Oh, hey, I'm winning the House Cup. Isn't that cool? Yeah, okay, Harry. But Voldemort knows better. He knows Harry's lying. And he wants to speak to Harry. And at this point, Harry sees his most terrifying sight yet. Harry would have screamed, but he couldn't make a sound. Where there should have been a back to Quirrell's head, there was a face. The most terrible face Harry had ever seen. It was chalk white with glaring red eyes and slits for nostrils, like a snake. How would you like to see that looking at the back of somebody's head? I don't know about you guys, I'd run the other direction screaming. But Harry doesn't do that, does he? Voldemort speaks to him. He knows Harry has the stone, and he tries to get Harry to give it to him. He tries to wheedle it out of Harry. Don't be a fool, snarled the face. Better save your own life and join me, or you'll meet the same end as your parents. They died begging me for mercy. Liar, Harry shouted suddenly. Look at what Voldemort's trying to do. Remember how Harry has been putting himself behind everything else. He's sacrificing himself. Voldemort's telling him to do the opposite. Voldemort's saying, save your life. Join me. You'll live then. But Harry knows there's something more important. He's already said he'd rather die than go over to the dark side and join Voldemort. And he knows very well his parents did not die begging Voldemort for mercy. Okay, and Harry, this is gutsy, right? He screams, liar, at Voldemort, right in his face. Pretty good there, kid, right? And he won't give up the stone, so Quirrell comes after him. But for some reason, Quirrell can't touch him. Anytime he comes in contact with Harry's skin, it burns him. Quirrell can't hold him. And remember how hard Harry struggles. He uses that to his advantage, doesn't he? He realizes what's going on, and he uses it. He won't let go of Quirrell. And he uses every ounce of strength that he's got in his body to hold off Quirrell. He's giving himself almost to the very limit here to save that stone. Okay, and then we see darkness closing over Harry. And we're left to wonder, what happened? Right? I wonder at this point how many of us whipped that page onto the next one, right? I know I did. I wanted to find out what happens. And the next thing we see is Harry thinking he sees the golden snitch. Amazing how much these boys think about Quidditch. But it isn't. It's not the snitch. It's Dumbledore's glasses. It's Dumbledore with some explanations for Harry. Harry's in the hospital ward. He made it. After all, he made it through. The first thing he does when he realizes it's Dumbledore and not the snitch, he panics, doesn't he? He doesn't know what happens. He doesn't remember. All he can think about is Quirrell's got the stone, Professor. He's got the stone. And Dumbledore, nope, he assures him, no, he doesn't. Everything's okay. And Dumbledore tells him it was almost too late. And again, Harry thinks, okay, too late. He almost got the stone. I was trying to hold him off, Professor. Now, I was almost too late. I almost couldn't do it. Dumbledore's thinking of something else. Dumbledore was almost too late to save Harry. The effort of holding off Quirrell almost killed Harry. Dumbledore did save the day, just in time. Okay, but he let Harry experience some things first, didn't he? He let him learn that there's something greater than himself, something that he would actually sacrifice himself for. That was important that Harry learned that. It's important that we all learn that kind of thing. That's what makes us really good human beings, when we know that there's something bigger out there than me. Okay? And Dumbledore goes on to explain now. The stone has been destroyed. Voldemort can't get it anymore. Everything's okay. Remember Harry's first reaction? He thinks of Nicholas Flamel and his wife. But they're going to die now, Professor. And Dumbledore says, yep, they will. They've got enough elixir of life to get their affairs in order, and then yes, they will die. Remember what else Dumbledore says. To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible. But to Nicholas and Perenelle, it really is like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, Death is but the next great adventure. You know, the stone was really not such a wonderful thing. As much money and life as you could want, the two things most human beings would choose above all. The trouble is, humans do have a knack of choosing precisely those things which are worst for them. Now, we could spend a lot of time unpacking this little piece of wisdom from Dumbledore, couldn't we? Death being the next great adventure to a well-organized mind. Human beings choosing money and life, and really, those are probably the things that are worst for them, at least in excess. Now, here's a little project for you guys. We don't have enough time in this class to really dig into this quotation. But over the next few weeks, write this out. Have it on a little sticky note or a little computer file in front of you, and think about it. Think about what Dumbledore meant when he said death was the next great adventure, and when he talked about what human beings choose and what they really need. Okay, this is one of the things that we as readers can get a lot out of if we take the time to really think and really reflect on what this means. So I challenge you to do that. Continue to come back to some of these Dumbledore gems and think about what they really mean. And think about what they mean to you and your life. Okay? When you do that, think about those things. And Dumbledore, of course, he gives us a couple more gems as he continues to explain to Harry. Okay, he talks about making sure Harry calls Voldemort by his name. Always do that. Fear of a name increases the fear of the thing. Okay? Harry stopped him from coming back this time. He'll try again, sure. But there'll be another one, just as courageous, maybe even Harry himself again, who's willing to fight what seems like, what appears to be a losing battle, and does it anyway, because that person knows there's something more. Harry has a lot of questions, and he asks Dumbledore to tell him the truth about something. Dumbledore says the truth. Dumbledore sighed. It is a beautiful and terrible thing, and should therefore be treated with great caution. However, I shall answer your questions, unless I have a very good reason not to, in which case I beg you'll forgive me. I shall not, of course, lie. Yeah, As somebody said, quoting The Hobbit, if more of us valued food and cheer and song above hoarded gold, it would be a merrier world. Indeed, getting our priorities in the right order, for sure. Okay, this is another little quote to think about deeply. How is truth both beautiful and terrible? Okay, and why should it be treated with great caution? More brain exercises for you guys. We know Dumbledore doesn't answer all of Harry's questions. He won't tell him why Voldemort wanted to kill him. We find that out much later. But he does tell him why Quirrell couldn't touch him. Your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it is love. He didn't realize that love as powerful as your mother's for you leaves its own mark. Not a scar, no visible sign. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It is in your very skin. Quirrell, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, sharing his soul with Voldemort, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. Harry is Harry because of the goodness, the love that his mother instilled in him. from the very time she saved him from Voldemort, and because he chose to act upon that goodness and love his whole life, and not on hatred and power and greed and ambition. It comes down to love. As we will see in just about all the Harry Potter books, it comes down to love. And Hagrid shows Harry some beautiful love as well, doesn't he? Hagrid comes with a gift for Harry. After Dumbledore leaves, after Ron and Hermione arrive and Harry explains everything to them, and they wonder, how much did Dumbledore really know? Did he let Harry do this so Harry could grow? Did he wait to come to the rescue so Harry could have these experiences because he needed them to become the person he's supposed to be? Good question. And Hagrid gives Harry a beautiful gift. It seemed to be a handsome, leather-covered book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizard photographs. Smiling and waving at him from every page were his mother and father. Sent owls off to your parents' old school friends, asking for photos. Knew you didn't have any. Do you like it? Harry couldn't speak, but Hagrid understood. Harry doesn't need the mirror anymore, does he? He can see his parents whenever he wants. And finally, we come to the feast, the wonderful feast, the end of term feast. Slytherin right now stands in first place, and the hall is decorated in Slytherin colors. But Dumbledore has a few last-minute points, and we'll end with this. Dumbledore's last-minute points. First, to Mr. Ronald Weasley, for the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years, I award Gryffindor House 50 points. Second, to Miss Hermione Granger, for the use of cool logic in the face of fire, I award Gryffindor 50 points. Third, to Mr. Harry Potter, for pure nerve and outstanding courage, I award Gryffindor House 60 points. Now remember, those who could add and cheer at the same time knew that Slytherin and Gryffindor were now tied. But Dumbledore is not done. There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. I therefore award 10 points to Mr. Neville Longbottom. And Gryffindor wins the House Cup. And I think all of us cheered, even those of us who are really in Slytherin, like me. I think we all cheered because Dumbledore is recognizing the bravery, the self-sacrificing nature, the goodness, the love of these 4 students. Okay, so our story is almost over. We wrap up with exam results. Everybody passed, yay, and returning home for the summer. Remember Harry's little gloat? He's not supposed to use magic, but Dudley doesn't know that. And we end our story, and we end our camp. I'm going to give you one final journal question before we sign off. What do you think Voldemort would have seen in the mirror if he had looked in it? What's Voldemort's deepest desire? Well, I hope you've all enjoyed this camp. While I'm wrapping up here, go ahead if you have any further questions or comments that you want to make. But I want to tell you at the end here that I thank you guys for participating. This has been an excellent camp. I know I've had fun. I hope you guys have as well, and I hope you've learned some things. I hope you've learned some things about how to really put yourself in a story and read really closely to get as much out of it as you can. Okay, that's what makes us good readers. So thank you for participating. If you've got further questions, please don't hesitate to email me at camp@signumu.org. Videos are available for all of these sessions. If you had to miss some or wanted to rewatch, they're on the Signum Academy YouTube channel. Your organizers and parents have that link for you. So I'm going to wrap up, and I want to thank all you magical people for joining me on this trip through Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Keep reading. Thank you.